Oh, you know, I was Canadian.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Attleborough Town Council Environment Committee on Monday the 17th of October 2022. Apologies for absence. I haven't had any and Anne hasn't heard that anybody else has. So unless anybody knows of any apologies, we'll assume that. Any declarations of interest? No? Oh, here comes Councillor Taylor. That's all right. We've only got to declarations of interest. Have you got any?
I have none.
Right, public participation. I'm not going to ask Amelia now because I've got that under a separate agenda item. We do have an issue that has come up today that Michelle was going to bring up, but obviously she's not here. There's an issue with Gamers Field car park. There appears to be 3 people living in their cars in the car park there. The groundsman discovered them this morning. And a member of the public has emailed in, which is why I brought this up under public participation. I don't know if anybody knows any more details and what we feel we should do about it.
No, I don't know any more details. Do we only publish car parking regulations on our site? I.e. no overnight parking, limited parking, that sort of thing?
I honestly don't know, but I would guess so. Taylor, do you remember whether there is or not?
I don't remember if there's any parking restrictions. I don't think there is. I know a few years ago we had some problems, didn't we, with noise with the cars, and when residents will regularly come to meetings. I don't know if any sanctions as such were put in place. I don't think they were. I think we just maybe did we lock it for a little while.
I think we tried, but it always causes problems.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. What I'd say is probably contact Brecon Council.
Yeah.
About the homelessness and rough sleepers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could also consider putting a notice on it where you can't stay overnight.
Well, we need to check whether there is no overnight parking sign. Can we just put one up, or does it have to be authorised?
Actually, why not?
Yes, we could put a sign up, but where's the teeth with that sign? Any parking restrictions got some level of sanction. You go into car park and they might have a management company that independently notice, etc. We could put a sign up, but what would happen if people ignore it? At the moment, if there is no sign, then actually there's, other than council as a landlord saying we don't want you to do it, we have really little recompense.
I think my concern is much as if they're homeless people, should we be drawing in the charities or the council, Norfolk Council, or somebody like that? So I'm really throwing it open for suggestions on this one. I'd be guided by what the police have to say.
We haven't contacted the police. Yeah.
In the first instance, for advice on what Councillor Smith is saying about if we were to put a sign up, you know, is there any enforceable as for the landlord?
As a private site, it would only be enforceable if we enforced it either through direct action ourselves, and that, again, that would just be through the courts or through employing a management company to run it.
I'm concerned that they're parking there, but I think I'm more worried about the social aspect of people having to park there to live in their cars. Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think again it is literally if it's housing and homelessness, best point of contact is Brecon Council.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah,
you organise that. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, if you put the notice up and it's contravened, then it is best.
Yeah, that's
If it's, would it be a worthwhile deterrent? You know,
It may work as a deterrent as well. Yeah.
Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, I've got another one public thing. That's the person that lives down by London Road Park. I've been Bill has spoken to him before, and just wondered if there's any update on the plan or whatever it is the layout.
I spoke to him on Friday.
So I spoke to him on Friday.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
I
just
said
waiting
I've got
for the
meetings.
exact measurements, but in principle, he's had the plans for the design. He just wants an exact measurement, which we won't be able to do until we've done the survey.
Mm.
So until we've got that, but in principle, we've accommodated his request.
I think
just
that's
said I'd bring
later
it
on
up
in the
tonight.
agenda.
I said
No, that's fine. I'd spoken to him.
Right, so we're all right with that, Anne?
Yeah.
Minutes of the Environment Committee, 15th of August. Obviously, we haven't had a meeting in September because of the death of Her late Majesty. So it's quite a while back. We're asking people to remember, but is everybody happy, or is there any matters arising?
I think matters arising are on the agenda, aren't they?
Yeah, I think all matters arising are on the agenda, but is everybody happy that this is a true record? Can I have a proposal then? Councillor Bond, seconder. Councillor Lane. All those in favour? Thank you.
I'm an abstention,
You're an abstention.
wasn't there?
You can abstain. Right. Item 6, safety concerns for people with assistance dogs. As you can see, I've invited, may I use your name? Amelia and Fang along to join us. She contacted the council about the difficulties she was having manoeuvring around the town, and Councillor Lane and myself invited Amelia in for a cup of coffee and a chat, and that's where we fell in love with Fang. And I thought some of these issues, in fact most of these issues, probably come under Bretland or highways, but I thought it was important to get them in the public domain so that we and anybody who reads the minutes or listens to the minutes of this meeting is also aware. So technically I cannot ask you to comment, but if there's anything you feel you really want to say, then I can suspend the meeting and ask for your opinion. Okay, so I will cover the issues as we discuss them. There's 9 issues there. One was the leaves all round by the church, which are getting terribly slippery. There's an awful lot there, and I gather that this is probably a regular thing, and where there's trees, there's leaves. I would guess it's probably a highways issue. But again, is there anything that we feel that we could do to assist that? Probably not. Probably because
Sorry, Chair, are we talking St Mary's?
Yes.
Okay. Are we talking inside the grounds or around the grounds?
No, out the pavement outside.
Public footpath on
Public
the outside.
footpath.
It's
It's
a perennial problem.
Surrogate Street, the
Yeah.
piece
Yeah.
along opposite the old people.
I know, okay, yeah, I know what you mean now.
Always seems to be particularly bad down
Do you know who's responsible for those footpaths?
there. Highways.
Highways.
Is it highways? Sorry, because I know that you've done some work getting ready for the bloomers and everything else, so you should know who does that.
Yeah, so that's Norfolk County Council Highways. They do have like a just online system where you can report it. So if there's like leaves and stuff on footpaths, there's like on their website, you can just report it and then they'll come out and they'll clean it up.
So,
They do clear it periodically, but they probably need to do more.
yeah.
Could I suggest
Councillor Lane and Councillor Ellis.
maybe we could ask the grounds team to keep an eye, and if they feel they need cleaning up, to alert the office, to alert highways, you know,
Yeah.
as they're regularly driving past, because apart from this being an issue for those with limited sight, there's also an issue for people, you know, elderly people who anybody who can't walk properly or anything. So I think it should be something to keep an eye on.
Councillor Ellis, you want to say something?
I think last year they, I don't know whether it'd be Bregland or County, did have a pavement hoover run around clearing them up at one point. And that was sort of maybe twice a month. So that may
Maybe
happen
we go
later.
to
in-
highways,
you know.
we make it out to go funds. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in addition to what Councillor Lane's just said, because it is a particularly bad piece of area, and we actually commented on this on Sunday while we were looking how deep the leaves are already, and how once they're wet they'll be incredibly slippery. You've got Holly Court there, and then opposite that you've got St Edmunds.
St
So,
Edmunds Court,
do you know what I
yeah.
mean? So it is a high footfall area for elderly with those two places.
Am I right in saying that was where Fang went into a four-wheel skid?
I will just say, this is, that little stretch along there has been like that since I was a child, and it was a great fun kicking through the leaves with the kids. Because I think that I'm concrete all now, I'm not sure. Yeah, but these leaves, they just seem to fall all of a sudden, don't they? And they're, as Catherine Payne said, they get so deep, and all you need is the wetness, and it just.
And it makes them very slippery. And I think anybody that's able-bodied or not relying on an assistance dog probably just, as you say, kicks through the leaves.
I will just say autumn trees is early this year,
Yes, it is.
considerably,
It is.
due to the summer.
Right, item 2 on the list. Business signs, the A boards on narrow pavements. I can understand because the people want the A boards as far out as possible to get the business. But if someone is walking with an assistance dog, they can't go one side or the other. So I would like to do something that requests people to keep their A boards as close to their premises as possible. And the very day of our meeting, I was in Tony Perkins, who had an A board out. I mentioned it to the guys in there and they said, we're so sorry, we'd never thought about it. Immediately went out and shifted it. So kudos to them, sorry.
It's another approach to highways, I think, because it is illegal to obstruct the highway.
This is one to ask, forgive my ignorance on this, but businesses do put stuff, it creeps out on be it an A board, shop a couple of doors down, you know, spreads halfway across the pavement with bits and pieces of chairs and rope around it. What are the rules on that? Does anyone know?
Yeah.
Is it just everybody isn't allowed? Because I know lots of businesses
It's illegal
do.
to obstruct the highway. You know, it's not your land to put anything on, basically.
Can landowners get, or can business owners get permission from the
Not as a rule, I don't think.
Okay. Because I've got quite a few businesses that do it.
It just, because it's not, never checked.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Lane and Councillor Taylor.
I think that I can understand why people do it. I quite like to see it, and I know it's you're not sure you're supposed to do it. But I think what you said about the reaction from Tony Perkins is probably throughout the town. Oh my goodness, I hadn't thought about it. And the last thing they want to do is to actually make, cause an obstruction that is going to, not just for disabled people, but also for parents with children having, buggies and having
Mobility schemes.
having to manoeuvre. And maybe we could put out something, just gently reminding people to be mindful of those, that there are people in the
Well,
I mean, that's just cool.
I quite like the direct approach, and I would be happy to walk the high street and pop into each shop and just have a word with them. What are the views on that? Or do you think we need to do it in a more formal way? Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Taylor, you can say something.
Yeah, I think probably the softer approach is probably the one that I'd advise, just because I think we're not really in any place to dictate to businesses what they can and can't do. But I think to go and say to them, this is causing a problem, we've had some concerns raised to us, I think they'd be more than willing to.
I think so.
I don't think, I think they'd straight away they'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, like that. I think that'd be the reaction. With like people's like curtilage, sometimes, or like on the high streets outside, I know that you can apply for like pavement licenses. So I think there might be a bit of a grey area there.
I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure. But I think if we just went and said, I'm so sorry, but can you move over a little bit? They'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think the soft approach is right. Just looking at this, it seems like it's at a county level. They have to apply for a license to do it on there. Otherwise, most councils throughout the country are saying that pavements have to be kept clean, have to be kept free for movement and stuff like this, and allow 1.8 metres, as several have said as well, as a minimum if you're going to put a board out there. So, but there's a portal you can do for Northern County Council as well. So it looks like there is a way of doing it. However, I think the softly approach to start with is where I was.
Can we say that I'll do a walk around town and speak to people and report back to the next meeting, and if there's any issues, we can go. Yeah.
I'm happy for that.
Is everybody
It's an
okay with
informal
that
action.
approach?
I
Yeah.
think that's the best approach in the first instance, softly, and, but there's that fall, what I mentioned, fall back on the not cooperative.
Is there some way of us finding out whether businesses do have that license to come out? Because you don't want to go in them. We don't want to go and start saying,
Yeah.
should you be doing that when they've got permission to?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not going to say they shouldn't do it. I'm going to ask them to keep it closer to their building so they leave more of the pavement available for people like Amelia and.
Yeah, I think the informal approach, we don't want to get caught
No.
in this enforcement.
No.
Because it will go round and round and round, and who are you to say, but the softly approach, and I'm sure everyone will be understanding.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Item 3 on this, I've conscious of time. Item 3 on the list. One of the things that was brought up is New North Road. Where there is a crossing there are no bobbles which indicate that there is a road. Which, when you've got a dog that is trained to stop its owner when it feels the bobbles, it doesn't. And I think on this occasion it walked her straight across the road because there were no bobbles there. So I would guess that's going to be Norfolk County Council Highways.
Just Connaught Road, or the other end.
No, New North Road that leads into Connaught Road.
Outside my office.
Outside your
Yeah.
building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You'll be out there in the morning, look for bubbles on
it
the
could, yeah,
road.
there isn't. I've been and looked.
New North Road isn't the size of a road, it's probably the size of a footpath.
Yes, I know, but
It's,
it still has traffic going up and
it's not
down.
standard practice to have them on every street corner.
Is it not?
No.
It's normally where there's a crossing.
Normally where there's a formal crossing, yeah.
Mm.
Because that's what it highlights the presence of the crossing.
And if we think it's necessary, you can ask Norfolk Highways to look at it, but it's not.
It's
necessary.
not standard. Right, well, perhaps we can.
I think because Connaught Road is such a busy road for pedestrians over and above a normal residential area, it might be worth just asking them, because if it is something that they could do at some point in the future. But that is, because with people coming from the train station walk along there, and it is a busy road for pedestrians, and we're trying to encourage people to walk rather than, and get buses from that. So maybe that would be.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I live on New
North Road, yeah.
and it is busy because you get all the people trying to like scroll through and like come
Yeah.
obviously across into town. And the corner, so if you were coming down Connaught Road and turning in, I do think it's not a bit blind, but it's like
It's
I
terrible.
find that before the cars are coming in, like you're right on the corner. Like, so if I'm coming with the pushchair and the pavements down there are so narrow that often I'm walking in the road because the pushchair is just impossible to navigate on the path. I feel like always a bit like conscious that I'm trying to squeeze on the path because I think cars that come round, you don't even see them come in. So I do think if I find that problem, I wouldn't want to be doing it, not being
Partially
understood.
sighted.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe
I
that's
would
something we could
support
refer
that.
to highways. You're all in agreement? The old perennial overgrowing hedges. Connaught Road is particularly an issue, but I wonder if we as a council can put out a plea to people to cut their hedges back. This is the time of the year to do it. Whether we could put something on our social media or Facebook or whatever. Anybody thoughts, suggestions? You're laughing, you tried it
Yeah,
before.
we've had a bit of pushback on this previously, shall we say, and told where to put the hedge, yeah. So,
You did it 3 words.
Well, if it outgrows the curtilage of their property.
yeah, I think we can try. But once again, the only thing you can do is politely go around and ask residents to do so.
Keep it trimmed.
And keep it trimmed and be aware that we're doing this because of this reason.
It's reason, yeah.
Give them a reason to do it. I think that's about all you can hope for.
I think maybe we could do something with all of them.
Like that.
Like that.
I was looking at Reece when that noise came. Well, I was going to suggest the possibility of going through a lot of these issues. Perhaps we could put something together just to remind all residents and businesses to be mindful of those who are partially sighted and who are infirm, and think about things like, you know, is the footpath or outside the house, just the general nice sort of, you know, bear this in mind.
But there's other issues on here that would come under that, so maybe we can do sort of a blanket thing. Because the next item is cars parked on pavements, which you obviously had the same trouble with the pushchair. I'm not sure that it's actually illegal to park.
It's illegal.
It's against the highway code.
It's not
illegal
technically
now.
illegal, it's only illegal in central London. Police can do it for some level of obstruction,
Yeah.
but there's no specific law. Now, if it's on the pavement where there's a double yellow, because the double yellow extends to the boundary of the property, then it's illegal. But if there's no parking restrictions on the road, then parking on partly or fully on the pavement technically isn't illegal.
Well, I think this probably comes under the heading then of our please be aware message.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, you do often get things on social media with parents, you know, commenting on that they can't get their pushchair, you know, along the pavement because the cars park. But they're playing devil's advocate. A lot of the newer developments, not usually they have very small footpaths, they have very small roads, and they don't have enough parking spaces for their property. So I can see both sides of it, but I think fundamentally you've got to look at the safety of the pedestrians and think about, you know, those that, you know, with children, those who are infirm, those who are partially sighted. So again, that could come under making the community aware and things.
And the next item on this is mobility and scooters and push bikes on the pavement. Again, not technically illegal, but if someone parks their mobility scooter and their push bike or their push bike, it can be difficult for someone who is partially sighted. So I think this again possibly needs to go on our general awareness.
Just add to that, I think something that maybe brought up as well was that a lot of the mobility scooters are silent because they're electric. So if you're hard of partially sighted, you don't hear them coming up behind you or towards, you know, bang, you know, the other dogs, their reaction, and I think that's an issue. I also think there is a grey area with mobility scooters that, you know, obviously a lot of people die in need of them, and they're marvellous things, but anyone can go out and buy one. And as for the use of them, sometimes it can be questionable, you know, how safely they're being used on our pavements, because they can pick up some speed, some of them.
Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
I only that's 4 mile an hour.
Yeah, just going back a couple of steps to the obstructing the paths with cars, as well as Newmark Road. One area that I have noticed is particularly bad, especially having a pushchair with me 99% of the time, is the bits by Lloyd's Bank where cars park opposite SA. Infuriates me, like honestly, like to the point where I want to leave notes on people's cars because I'm livid. Because they could pull further forward, there's space to pull further forward, but they don't, and then they're blocking the whole path. But you can't get round because there's other cars, and then you're going in the road, and that is the worst.
You're nodding. Is that yeah?
Terrible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just to say, I have double checked it because with the highway code being updated recently, you must not park partially or wholly on the pavement in London and should not do so elsewhere unless signs permit it. And it's that issue. You must in London and should not elsewhere. And that's what makes it not illegal.
But I think it's a question of making people bring the awareness.
And awareness.
Yeah.
Bottom line is asking people to be considerate.
Yeah.
Yes, you're relying on people's good work.
And the next one is pavement blocking in general, where people put baskets and troughs and things outside their shops. So that can be covered on my general walk around there. The other question that you asked was, is the grit in the bins dog safe? And I asked the clerk, and she said yes, she's pretty sure they are. So there shouldn't be a problem with that. Okay. And not to put too fine a point on it, the final thing is dog poop. People who don't pick it up. One of the things, and forgive me, this is horrible, that was pointed out to us was people with white sticks who are having to push in front of them and then go to close their stick down. So not to put too fine a point on it. So could we add into the general thing, please make sure you pick up, because it is partially sighted people and people who have in need of assistance that basically can't see it, and then they just put it in. That covers everything that was on our list. A lot of it is not things that we can actually do about, except in a make the public aware thing. But I did want to bring it to all our attention and to put it out there in the into public forum. So thank you for listening to all that. And I would say, please, if you have any issues, you've got my number, let me know, or let the office know, speak to Anne or to Paula. And if there are any issues, we will help where we can, or we'll make the public aware where we can. And yes, Peter?
Yeah, can we just send in August and ask for any comments?
I'll second that if you want to.
Yeah, I think we'll need to suspend the standing orders then. Someone
make a comment.
Are you, Peter, are you proposing to suspend?
I'm proposing, yes.
Second it, so we'll suspend standing orders. Favour? Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good, as that we said in the meeting that we had. It was just mostly public, just sort of making the public aware. And I've been thinking more of your, you know, when we brought up about the newsletter, about doing a bit with him, saying that from his point of view, from what he has to deal with. When I've talked to family members and friends and stuff, they've all said that that's probably the best way to do it, because people are so used to seeing stuff written about people that they just sort of don't.
Well, this was why we asked your permission if we could take a picture of Fang, because if we put this thing onto Facebook, we can put Fang's picture with it and just say, these are the issues that Fang encounters.
We're just in the final stages of doing our winter newsletter, but we hopefully will be getting another one in the spring. So maybe we could do some sort of, look at possibly doing a feature. Then, as this is our first newsletter, we'll sort of introduce. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, and thank you.
Do you want to stay, or do you want to go, or do you want?
I don't mind, I can stay.
Okay, right.
If not, we'll take Fang's photo and you can get going.
Much more interesting.
Doesn't get much more exciting. Restart the meeting now, please. Right, the town welcome to Africa signs. Went around looking at locations, possible locations, which I want to propose to you. Councillor Lane and myself went on a drive around. I did take some photos, which Michelle has got, but obviously she didn't get round to putting them all out to everybody. There's obviously 4 that we would have decided in previous meetings that we were going to put them in the sort of the 4 main entrances to thing. Right, that's it. Let's find the ones. Start with the one coming in off the A11 by the Stag. There is space by the Stag for a very good thing. There's already a sign which we suspect will end up being 30 rather than national speed limit. Technically, Attleborough starts further back down the A11. But the question is, do we want it on the actual borders, or do we want it at the start of the conurbation?
Where does the actual board, where is the border? Because the town's grown so much. You know, I think
Well,
about 20 years ago, you
This was the conversation that we were having in the car.
My understanding, if you look at, by the Bretton Lodge,
yeah,
you go into an area known as Harpham, which happened just before, I don't know if anybody's Hall Farm Nursery. So that the parish of Harpham then comes under Eccles, etc. So it's a bit further. There used to be a white cottage before they built the Bible set, just along the A11. I think you can still see something through the trees there, and that was where Attleborough. Like, that's my understanding.
we're not going to be accused of sort of some land grab, are we? by
No,
potentially-
all the proposed places that we've got are all our side of the boundary, but it's a question of how far near the boundaries we want to go, and that's what I kind of wanted your.
My recollection of London Road coming in that way was there used to be a sign near the checkered flag garage.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, there was a the lay-by's still there, but there was a lay-by before you sort of got some
Yeah.
houses. The lay-by's there now, there's housing. Well,
But
Also the
I think
houses
there's
stretch beyond that.
what do you call them, the stones? The old
Milestone.
milestone. I think there's a milestone. But then I suppose this new development's gone up now, so it's creeping further and further towards the.
And by the time it's finished, it will be.
It'll be as far as the stack.
So, you know, for longevity of not trying to move it every time there's a house development, I don't think it will be too agreed if we look at that site. I think it's the appropriate place when you're coming in from
Well,
the south, isn't
yes, because as you come round the bend, there's a little stretch of road, and then there would be the sign, "Welcome to Attleborough."
And that's at the moment where the 40-mile-an-hour sign is. So that will be a 30-mile-an-hour.
I was going to say it's a derestricted sign.
Oh, is it
Yeah,
derestricted?
not derestricted.
But then I went and had some words with I never remember the lady's name, who's the receptionist at Great Lodge, and their postal address is Attleborough. You know, they're not far from.
No, I know where that is.
Yeah.
So.
But
You want
what
help
we
with?
wanted to show was that there's plenty of land there for
Oh, right, yes.
positioning.
I think that works well.
So that would be our suggestion for that one. Okay.
Probably better. We'll probably grow.
We are.
That's what it's going to
The next one was coming from Old Buckingham. As far as we can ascertain, the border is at Bunce Bank, which is where the new connecting road from Harpham Road is going to come out. So there's a delightful back picture of my co-councillor. We feel that sort of at Bunce Bank, but the old Buckingham side of the Bunce Bank crossroads, and that's the photo that we took there.
The problem with that site, I mean, the logic tells you that's where the link road is going to be coming in across. That makes sense. And I think there used to be one halfway down Simpson's Hill that said Attleborough.
Yeah.
I think they used to, but there was one a bit further on towards Foundry Corner, wasn't there? But the verge is very narrow there.
And
That's the
that was about the only place that we could find that had a verge wide enough, but we're not sure actually exactly when the road is coming out. And I also have a friend who was past chairman of Old Buckingham, and he said as far as he knew, the Old Buckingham border went up to Bunce Bank.
So the investment operation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, obviously, if you've gone and looked and you've obviously been there in person, you're gonna have a far better idea than us sat here of like doing, because you'll have, obviously these areas might be good, but you're gonna be, when you were there, comparing them to other areas along the
Yes,
same road.
this was exactly what we
So-
tried to do.
So if you've identified these areas,
Probably there.
I would say you're gonna be the best people with the best knowledge here right now. If for any reason, Phil around you probably knows far better than, well, I would. If they were put in and then say in 18 months time we thought, oh, do you know what? this really should be moved a bit further down. Is it the end of the world, or can that happen? Like, is it going to cause, you know, would we have to buy a new sign, or could we just move it? How hard would that be? Just,
That's interesting you say that, Councillor Taylor, because two of the sites we found, there's already an outburst line there that says twinned with.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Someone's come down now.
Needs to
Yeah,
go down.
yeah.
Well, this is
So
the
we-
other photos that
Yeah, so we said like, it's more a case of renewing those signs, but then that we said exactly what you said, this thing about the funds bank issue. A lot of it is down to who owns the land, you know, whether we can get permission because there isn't a sign there yet. The verges are narrow, so there's not many places you can put it. On the verge, you'd probably have to look at, you know, but we don't know until we look into it further, who owns the land, and if that is a possibility.
That could be part of the conversation with Cardigan as well.
Yeah.
Homes England, because that one there, they'll know exactly where that line is. That would probably be the last one that we put in once we've confirmed it. I've got an app on here that shows me where all of the parish boundaries are.
Exciting.
It's fantastic. You can tell what exciting life I live. So yeah, the road, the parish boundary goes down Bunsbank Road Industrial Estate, comes a
Yes.
bit further down,
Yeah.
and where you've got that lay-by coming in is where the other side goes to.
So I think it's a question of whether we have it before or after the
I
new
think-
link road.
I think in principle, we'd like it before you get to the link road, because that's going to be part of the Attleborough development.
Yeah.
But you might have it ready to go, because in the new year, they're going to be putting that road in.
Yeah.
And so you just have that waiting until Homes England have started access, and then you can put that in afterwards. That seems the best way, but it is around about that location.
It's interesting actually you say that, because what I just said about the verges being so narrow, and yet we both said, oh, well, this is where the link road's coming in. Well, obviously, if the link road's coming in, it's going to be there is going to be a much wider area there, isn't there, with the link road. So the conversation with Cardigan and say, well,
They want to put some boarding up and notification for the houses coming on the access to that new road anyway. So it probably would pay to have a conversation with them to find a suitable location that we're all happy with. But yes, the license is there to have that conversation.
Right, the third one is the one coming up London Road by Decoy Common. Although technically that's not, I think the border is the other side, isn't it, where Attleborough actually starts, but this is the first practical place that you could put a welcome to Attleborough sign. What I would say with this one is obviously it's got the twinned with, so it's definitely got to come down, but it is very much taller than the other signs that have been put around. So I don't know if we want to maintain that height, or if we want to just
I think uniformity around.
uniformity around the town. But there's
And the other thing that we'd have to be careful in that position is we're in conversation with the developers on the land opposite to see if they'll do the pathway for Decoy Common down to the road there
got to Mill Lane.
to Mill Lane, because then we've got a pathway joined up to one of our places, and it's just going to allow enough width on that pathway as well as the sign in that location to do. So just being sensitive of that.
It is a good wide area there.
Yeah,
It's the best way you just turn into Decoy.
Widens out and,
Yeah, you've got plenty of room to do there, but rather than perhaps right up on that sign, it might be a bit further forward that we do ours,
yeah,
because we will be getting the pathway there at some point. Okay.
So, with regards to that sign, that looks like quite an official sign. Is that our sign? Is that the county council? Is
We
it
have to
highway
get in touch
sign?
with highways to see who owns the sign.
right. The last one, possibly more contentious, is coming from Great Ellingham. Now, where does Attleborough start?
Oh, Phil, get your app out. Where's that?
We
Well,
think,
the boundary's about to change. The other side of the A11 is going to become Great Ellingham as of the end of this month, beginning of November. I don't know whether anyone on Breckland's been privy to that, but yes, it's part of our land at the moment, but
Because
So what
we
you're saying-
felt it needed to come down almost as far as the hospital. Because that is where, at the moment, where the Attleborough boundary starts.
That is now considered part of the Great Ellingham parish area.
So what about those houses as you come past the hall on your left, that row of houses as you come down the Bannister Bridge flyover?
Yeah.
Are they all gonna be grey area?
They're all going to be Great Ellingham.
Wow.
The flyover's boundary. on
The
those.
flyover is a boundary. I mean, the best place to put it is, and it's going to be adjacent that the dotted piece of land between the A11 and the cemetery, right where the tip is
Mm.
on that side. So,
So
as
these
you-
are no good then.
right, because the boundaries are changing. Yeah, sorry.
All the houses up Ellingham Road, what, whatever they want for it.
Yeah,
From the traffic lights,
yeah.
are going to move into a Great Ellingham boundary.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, we had it at a council meeting, was it the last one, the one before, where it said that, you know, Breckland just notified us. They discussed it years ago, actually, before my time, but they were just saying this is actually going to happen now. So that side of the A11.
So there is one.
Yeah, all of those, all of that, and that field there now isn't under development, the one at the top.
So effectively,
So therefore, there could be the
Yeah, so
possibility
effectively,
that
we
we
can pull it down
have
on the
to have
A11.
a look.
Well,
Just on the bridge.
as you're coming from the Norwich direction down to the junction and you turn into Attleborough, it'd be best on the left-hand side there,
Just there.
adjacent to that plot of land
Yeah.
that we should be getting.
Right. So can you
That-
make?
That's where Attleborough will officially start, and the other is in the,
Does that
Great
boundary then still
sorry,
come this side of the A11 or
sorry,
going out of the boundary when it comes in? Is it the other side of the A11 going out of that or this side of the A11 coming in?
it's the other, well, the A11 is a boundary.
So
so
the
anything-
A11 will be in Attleborough.
The A11, half of the A11, by the way, they've done the boundary, will be, you know, south traffic, yeah, will be in ours, traffic will be in.
All right,
another.
yeah.
But the way they've done it is basically the A11 is a dividing line. So we've got places, where like where British Petroleum would be based and, Anglia Demolition.
Yeah, so like
So,
West Car Road.
West Car Road, where
Yeah.
that's been cut in half when the A11 came, that side will be now under, there, right the way down to the Stag Island, all the way down there will become part of the Great Ellingham parish area.
On down the centre of the road.
It's pretty well, yeah.
So after roundabout being Great Ellingham, yeah.
so if you're talking about where to put that sign then, that presents a smaller problem in that some traffic will be coming down Ellingham Road under the flyover.
Yeah.
But other traffic will be coming southbound off down the slip road there.
Yeah,
So if you put it here, they are going to miss it.
That's the triangular piece of land that we'll be acquiring. So I was thinking of putting it adjacent to that land.
Yeah, so anybody coming down the slip road.
Whichever way you
It's,
come, into the town, from whatever direction you see the sign.
Just to the left of the slip road,
Yeah,
southbound slip road.
After the traffic lights.
Yeah,
On the
okay.
that side.
Right, the other thing I was asked to do was confirmation of size, so that the clerk can obtain some quotes.
I know we identified our preference last time,
I thought we did.
so
I think, yeah, I think we did, didn't we?
I think that was the design as opposed to the size.
Size.
I think it was the design and there were a
Was
couple
it
of
a
size.
metre and a half? I thought they were medium.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I thought they were metre and a half.
It's the only place you can do it.
Well, we could go back and look over the last minutes, because we did decide on the design, but we didn't decide on the size.
Okay.
What are the options?
Eh?
What are the options?
I don't think,
Don't know at the moment,
there'll be
because I haven't brought
a-
those papers with me. Because Michelle was the one that was asking the question.
On the paperwork, the signs that were quite large, and you said you'd like them smaller.
I think from memory, and this is from memory, so it's probably got it wrong. I do a lot of measuring all the time, so I think they're around about 1.2 to 1.4 meters wide. And we were considering whether they'd fit onto the available land for these sites. So now that we've identified these, we're probably best to go and measure the smallest part of that and see what it could actually fit. And then that can determine, come back to us, and we can determine if that's right.
When we just went for a rough recce, I had in my head a metre and a half for some reason. Unfortunately, we've got a town name that's long.
Compost down there, so obviously that.
I don't know what we do about that, because it was really quite expensive, wasn't it?
So where do we go on this? Because I know we talked about how it was the chickens causing the rats, and we talked about if there wasn't an improvement, if we still can continue to have the rats, we'd start billing allotment holders for the cost of pest control. But can we categorically say that it's the chickens causing the rats? Because if we can't say that, should we then be billing people who might not have any say in the matter?
Question. Yeah, Councillor.
I think that Councillor Smith says it's proven this, and that where you've got chicken or compost heaps, the chances are you're going to have rats anyway. And again, is this more a case of it seems to be better than it was? So do we have a conscious effort to just make people aware of being vigilant, in how the hygiene around the chicken? It'll be interesting because I did notice that some of them, I know they're all locked away now, but they did seem to have really improved on their, I don't know what you call it, their netting, and that.
Cages.
That. And then of course you go down the other route of, best thing keep the rats down and cats, and the more cats around the better. But I don't see how we can police it really, other than going.
Well, it says on here for information, so I think what we do is we leave it in the hands of Michelle and the team. It's an operational thing.
I think she did think about getting one of the ground staff trained up as a.
Well, she's in charge of the staff and the operations, so
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, something, because I think something I thought was one of the main concerns with the rats was the proximity to the play area, and obviously germs, little hands, little mouths. I know obviously this is just for information or for an update this evening, but maybe something we could look at going forward is like maybe even just a permanent like hand sanitising station or something at the play area, so that once you're done or played you can sanitise your hands, because I think it's disgusting, really.
That caused that. We've had a look at in the past. It's an external flammable source. And unfortunately, due to the nature of vandalism we've experienced, someone just needs to set it alight. I mean, it's alcohol based. And that's the problem. And that's what's happened in other areas locally, where we've had the 5 market town meetings with Wands and Brecon. I think it was Wattenall, maybe Swaffham did something like this, and they've abandoned it because they were either being stolen, destroyed, or set alight. It's terrible because you want to improve things, you want to make a better environment for people, but the vandalism just causes too much of an issue and potential for not really solving the problem. Don't know what the solution is in that case.
As I said before, a breeding pair of rats has about 10 little ones at a throw. That you could have 5 breeding pairs, and they will escalate like no tomorrow. And then you've got a bigger problem in it, because they'll go from there into the houses, and away you go. And same concern as Councillor Taylor's got, right next door to a play area. How many other allotments in town have got chickens on? There's only the 2 down there, as far as I know.
There's no other chickens.
No other chickens
There
anywhere.
was one on Chapel, but they're now gone. But the other thing is you've got rats running over produce on the allotment as well.
Can I just add to that? Is that you have to be aware that with composting, if you're putting kitchen produce on, like potato bin, you will attract rats. You know, it's so, yes, I know that you have chickens, you're going to get rats, but you're going to get rats anyway. What's that saying, that you're only so many feet, you're only ever so many feet away from a rat, wherever you are in central London, where there aren't no chickens, there's always rats around. So whilst I think, I agree, it's not right that we've possibly got allotments next door to a play area. I agree with that, but you have to be aware, even if we eradicate all the chickens from that site, you're still going to get rats there.
People have got compost bins.
People have got compost. People are I'm talking about on allotments because they're composting, and that's all part of, growing your own fruit and veg. It's, you have the mice and the rats. Plus, there's that alongside the A11, there's the ditch. That runs at the edge of the allotment. There's a ditch runs all the way along there. So there's going to, where there's water, there's going to be rats. So
Can I just ask, was this just for information, or was there anything that Michelle wanted us to know about?
Only that we wondered whether it'd be a good idea to get the ground staff trained as pest controls, because it's a very costly thing.
Yeah.
It was costing quite a lot of money, and they weren't that successful.
And I think she's responsible for staff training. I think we can leave it to
If
Michelle if she
Michelle
does
wants to make a recommendation to personnel, she's very welcome.
it. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the guys said he's got some ferrets.
Jack Russell,
So the answer is, ask Michelle to use her discretion if she feels it's necessary. She needs to take it to personnel to ask for training for once of the staff.
go to personnel and ask if we can employ Jack Russell.
Please do.
Have an official time, Jack Russell.
If that doesn't cure the problem, then we might have to bring it back and consider whether we have chickens or not. Item 9, railings and bus shelters update. I think this was the decorating, wasn't it?
Yes, they have come back to me now, and I met the gentleman on Friday, and he thinks that he can get somebody to come and help paint them.
So that's
Sorry,
right.
that we.
Yeah. So that's going to
The
happen when?
offenders. We've got to get some risk assessments over to him, and then he's going to arrange something.
So Michelle's got that in there.
Yes,
Yeah,
Michelle knows
right,
that,
thank you.
yeah.
That's just for information, and we don't need to vote on that one.
Positive.
Thank you, Michelle and yourself
Yeah.
for persevering on that
Yeah.
one. Item 10, wildflowers at gamers and poppies.
Okay, so with the delays where we didn't have a meeting last month, although obviously that was unavoidable, and for very sad reasons, it has kind of thrown us kind of out of this a little bit now because the time to be doing this ideally is autumn, like it is like the early autumn. So we're now coming to a point where it would be going in like late October, it just wouldn't be right. So I've had a look, but I haven't looked in too deep because I just thought, what is the point if it's not the right season and things might change and there might become funding available that's not available right now and bits and pieces. I've had a look at it just briefly, so I will update. So wildflowers at Gamers predominantly, you've got two choices. So you can get like mixes that are wildflower mixes, or you can get ones that are like native grass and wildflower, which we've already got some native grasses growing there. But the problem is to then do the seeding, you need to spread it back so at least 50% of the ground is like fresh soil, so it's like visible soil. So the two things are the flora, which is the grass and wildflower mix, that to do an acre, so 1 acre, you need 10 kilos of this seed. And it's £43 a kilo. For the just wildflower, you need 2 kilos an acre, so like a fifth of the amount, like far less. But that is £166. But that still works out as the cheaper option. And that's just for the flower seed. There's 2 providers that are, well, that are recommended on the National England website. That's Cotswold and Emsgate. Cotswold I thought was my preference. But again, if we look at this in more detail, we can look at the pricing more thoroughly. Like this is just a touch and go. Again, I don't know I know the areas very well, but I'm not a grounds person and they might know this more than I do because they do acid and clay soil mixes, they do chalk and limestone soil mixes, they do damp meadow mixes, woodland edge and shady area mixes. And now I'd say maybe the damp meadow mix, decoy common, somewhere that's a bit wet. But Gamers, I don't know what soil we have at Gamers. It's just mud to me.
The drainage on Gamers is better. It does drain well. I mean, that's one of the reasons they like having football pitches there, is it very rarely floods and the drainage goes away well. I think it's more of a sandy mix.
Sandy mix. Okay. Well, that wasn't one. It was acid and clay, chalk and limestone, damp meadow.
But
So
I can get more details because that's only on the hearsay of a few people I've been speaking about it.
okay. So there was obviously, do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of options available depending on what soil type we have. So that'd be dependent on that as well. For the poppies, just for poppies rather than the wildflower mixes, that is more expensive. That's £130. Actually, it's cheap. £130 a kilo. Yeah, so that's actually cheaper than the wildflower mix, but it's more expensive, obviously, than the flora mix. And although the poppies and the flower mix, both of those are to be sown in the autumn, if you did go for what it might sound expensive, and I don't think it was as good, but this is, group discussion. If you did want to go for the flora, which is the grasses and flowers combined, you can sow that March. So if it's something that we wanted to start and it's something that we wanted to get moving, that option is on the table. But if not, it is a waiting game now. So that's why I didn't look at it in too much detail. So I just thought if we're waiting until autumn, it's not a conversation really to dive too deep into now.
I think we probably ought to readdress this in January or February, early February time, and make a decision on what route we're going so we can get it mapped into the works and everything else, because that would enhance the area. And if we're doing the access improvements to Decoy Common now, we need it used more and have more of an open use for it. And I think I'd love to have a poppy field ready for the end of next season. But that does mean March, April time.
Can I propose that we put that forward for January, but prior to that, that we get the grounds team, perhaps with the help of Councillor Taylor, to find out about the soil and etc. So that we know exactly what we're talking about and cursory, how much.
Yeah, let's get prepared so we can make a decision.
So we don't come to the January meeting, then it has to be delayed to the February meeting.
It sounds reasonable.
We could be able to work out the area from the top of the survey, won't we? We'll know exactly the acreage that we need to cover. Okay.
Or conversely, we can work out how far we can go if we've got a budget for so many acres.
Yeah, exactly.
That was going to be my next question is, do we have the budget or do we have to allocate the budget?
Well, to be fair, because of the budget wasn't used anywhere near as much as we thought it would be for the groundworks improvements, the decoy common, we've got budget to do this. And we've got a timescale to use it by. I think it's certainly into next year at some point we need to use this for. So we can do this well. I mean, I think
so we've got the budget to do it properly.
I think we've got a little bit of repair work to do on some of the fencing area from conversations I've had. But that's relatively hundreds of pounds, not thousands of pounds. And this, I think there is something around about £8,000 or £9,000 left of that budget.
I mean, just to add to this, so when I was looking at like the mixes, they do, as obviously over the description. So with the wildflowers and the poppies, for example, it gives, I mean, there is, the process is quite straightforward. It's not a difficult process. It will be a bit time consuming at the beginning because you've got to make sure, well, actually it's quite wet down decoys, it probably would be, but you've got to make sure they're well watered, that's the thing. But obviously, not even just the fact that it's going to enhance the area and make it look so much nicer. They obviously provide the pollen and the nectar for pollinators and long lasting, these mixes. I mean, the poppies are annuals, but they'll obviously seed and they will come.
I was going to say they'll be self-seeding and
so,
self-perpetuating.
and they are, where they're slow growing, they're less maintenance. So for the ground stuff, it's literally cut once a year. If you cut it once a year in July, then you'll get a second flower in autumn as well.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's so low maintenance.
There'll be a real attraction benefit to our community on so many levels.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for doing that research. So can we just bring this back? Will you try and find out what the soil is?
Well, I'm more than happy if you.
I can get a test kit to test the soil, find out what it is. There's nothing.
So you can do that, Councillor Willen, get the soil tested.
I'm happy to work with a member of the grounds team on this or liaise with them or provide, like if they want any of the links to what I've been looking at, I'm more than happy to provide that.
I think that's really good, and we got to scrape the grass
so
as well, haven't
you
we?
need
So,
at least
so you've got to have
50% fresh soil
so you have
coverage.
to work with the ground staff for them to do that. So
But we can get that
it's,
prep done.
it's a matter of getting the spec together, ready to go for January meeting.
And
so that we
Councillor
can
Leslie and
approve it.
Councillor Westby, you can get sort of area for us so we know how much
I've got the
water.
drawing.
We can do the topographical and even on the farming implements, there are farming implements that fit onto our tractor that would do that relatively quickly. Within a couple of days, you'd have that ground prepped. So let's get it all together.
And then we'd have a strewing party, do we?
We will, yes, exactly, yeah.
We'll walk the fields and try. Right.
Get the wheelbarrows now.
So I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that research. And we're all going ahead. Do we need to take a vote on it? No? Yes? Do you want to propose it?
I think it's part of the same proposal because we're getting the information to make a final decision.
So we'll propose.
That doesn't need, I don't feel the chair needs to propose because it's under the previous
But what we
proposal.
do know is if we need it put onto the January environment agenda, or do you want it to the main meeting?
January would be better.
Yeah, January environment meeting. So that we can
A full costed scheme ready for approval.
ready for approval at the January meeting.
Councillors, are you happy to go with poppies as a preference on the decoy common?
But I have a poppy.
I
I
think,
think it's fun.
I think poppies on decoy would be lovely, and I think
Wildflowers are gamers.
Okay.
Yes, I think we'd already sort of said that, and I think we all agree that that would be
Okay.
brilliant. Oh, exciting. Now we get to muddy conditions at dog walking areas.
Back to normality.
Right, you had a solution, didn't you?
I've got several solutions actually.
Cunning plan.
You've got a
Cunning
cunning
plan.
plan, okay, go on then.
There's three solutions really. The documents I circulated with the agenda, they're quite a formal system of interlocking slabs of almost like an honeycomb pattern that they lock together on a prepared base and filled with either gravel or grass. They can be grassed. The documents show quite an elaborate preparation, which is intended really for temporary car parking or overflow car parking. So we don't need anything nearly as elaborate as that. Just 4 inches, 100 millimeters of hardcore or type 1 as a base, and then lay the things down and fill them with, like I say, with either gravel or grass. Michelle has actually come up with a very similar system, but it's more of just a mat that's laid on the ground. So it would be easy to lay and less preparation required. And the third option is basically akin to what we're proposing down at Decoy, but without the timber edgings. So basically scraping the mud off and rolling in some type 1, some crushed granite, which have slightly more natural look, maybe less formal.
which is which is your preference? Which one do you think?
On
and
reflection,
the longest lasting as well. Like which is
This system, the mod page system is probably the longest lasting. My preference, I think, would be to bear in mind the ground staff are going to be doing it, and for the cheapness as well, or economy, shall we say, to get the mini digger that we've got, scrape the mud off, and use it to roll in some crushed granite. Give a much more natural look.
And will the water drain away sufficiently for that?
Well, again, if we do a sort of, well, yeah, what my thought is we could do a sinuous path rather than defined slabs of stone, and the water, if any water that doesn't soak through will just run off the side, but you've still got a nice firm dry path.
Councillor,
I think that ultimately what we want to achieve is to get rid of the mud.
Yeah.
That's the other, and I think this, the nature of the beast is a dog walking area, you want to look natural. And in my experience, having had a very long driveway at the farm where we had it excavated and we had all this fancy stuff and then peat shingle on top, and then every 5 years we'd have to buy another 5
It would
tons.
need topping up period.
It would keep you topping up, you know, you've got another 5 tons of peat shingle on top because it does compact down, you know. So my personal view would be to go for a natural look with the granite that we can maintain ourselves, because the costings of that would be gradually.
Again, if it needs topping up, you get a bag from Houston's or whatever.
That's what my concern is. If we put a big expenditure into this, yes, it would, you know, look very swish, but is that what you want to achieve from a dog walking area where you want it to look natural and ultimately you just want it not to be muddy? That's my view.
Councillor Taylor?
yeah. I was just going to say if Andy would like to make his recommendation proposal, I'd second it.
Fine. We asked your professional opinion.
Exactly.
You're proposing granite, yeah?
I propose a natural granite. Yeah.
Would anybody like to second that? Councillor Taylor? Anybody in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions?
How's it going to be implemented? Is instruction going to go to our ground staff to do it? Or how's that?
Yes, our ground staff can do it, can't they? Yeah.
Have a meeting with this, you should go through it.
Right, Jubilee Wood update. Do you have that? No.
I've got a little bit more information on that, and it is just for information at the moment. There is still a little bit of confusion with Breckland on the timescale of acquiring the land behind the cemetery. There has been a document signed by the officer at Breckland for us to take the land, but there's, shall we say, a little bit of politics that we're working for at the moment. It's exactly when that's going to be. Trying to be positive. So as soon as we've got more clarity on that, but we've let Breckland know that we will require that land for that purpose behind the cemetery, down into that corner piece between the cemetery and the A-level. It's that triangle piece there. And that's the location that we've identified as Jubilee Wood. We've been having just a conversation before this meeting with Roger, who knows people, who may be able to come along and give us advice on what type of trees would suit the soil as well. But of course, if we've got Peter or anybody else who would like to come and have a look and see what soil conditions we have, we'd like a mixed forest of indigenous species. That would be something that would last, but also improve the drainage in the area as well. So we've got a brief, and it probably is just waiting for the green light from Breckland before we get the go ahead. But in the meantime, we're very welcome to get down to the site and get a feel for what we'd like to do and how we'd like to do it.
Two things on this. One, putting my events committee hat on, I think it would be nice if we could make an announcement to the public about this before the end of the year. That,
Okay.
okay. Within it, if we could just once, I know that you're struggling to get this commitment from Breckland, but it would, once we've got that, if we could go live, I know the public can listen to this, but so they know that we are doing something.
We've got the newsletter going out, as you know, for the winter one, which is focused on Christmas events, bits and pieces. The spring one, I think we were looking at around about February time.
Yeah.
Late February. I think, in all honesty, we could probably get something for an announcement to be done then. I think this side of Christmas, with all the other matters that we've got to go through with Breckland on, this might get shunted down the list a little bit.
I think it's valid to say we are hoping, and that bit down there, I don't think anyone
No one
really
wants
do.
that part, so.
No, that's so pretty safe.
Well, I think we're in agreement that we're going to do a Jubilee Wood, and we
Yes.
have our preferred site.
Yeah.
And whether it is, I mean, hopefully it will be our preferred site, and if
Yeah.
it's not, we'll have to. So, as again going with the events committee hat on, I will be doing a summary of the year in December to put out, so we could include that as part of
Yeah, that'd
our
be great. And
projects that we're
Very
looking
cool.
on. The second thing on this
Yeah.
is, as I've mentioned before, there was a Millennium Wood planted in Kenningball, and I had a chat with some of the Land Trust people who manage that at a funeral I was at a couple of weeks ago, and they're really happy to meet some of us, or whoever wants to come down, to go through what they went through, what they would never do again, and what they would do again, and how they manage it. I know we do have a grounds team, but they manage theirs and maintain it with volunteers, and the amount of hours it takes to maintain it. So I'm going to propose that, if I don't know what day of the week, probably a Saturday morning. I don't know if people are happy. If I set a date for a Saturday morning, we can meet up over there and go for a walk around. And
I think that'd be very good to get us all down there and get a sense with the relevant expertise down there to make a decision. If you could just wait until Breckland have absolutely confirmed that that's okay, it saves anybody coming over for a wasted journey on that site, at least. Okay.
I do have one personal comment. This is Jubilee year, and I would like to see some kind of announcement about the Jubilee Wood in Jubilee year. And
That's
I
a valid
know.
point. That's a very valid point.
Coronation Wood.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Coronation Wood.
yeah, I've got things like that.
Yeah, but
the Royal Wood.
we have, and
But
oh, but what
Queen?
Queen?
Jubilee the Queen, and King.
yeah.
First of
No,
all, you've got like it's for her
Monarch.
Jubilee. Then it could is it her Memorial Wood? Is
Yeah.
it Charles's, Kingy Wood or whatever you call it, Charlie Boy? Yeah.
And if we're going to, I would like one spectacular oak tree. The
Okay,
Queen.
well, we will, yeah, absolutely, let's,
Then you've got something to attach a plaque to.
we certainly won't rest on our laurels, we'll
No.
proactively seek
That was my
clarity.
only observation. It
Yeah.
is Jubilee year, and I would like to see the announcement. made.
That's a very good and valid point.
Thank you, that's for information. Erection of angled flag poles, this is something that.
Yeah, this is
Councillor
some,
Lanes.
I'm happy to take, Michelle's not here and I think she would have gone into it. This was something I asked to be put on the agenda and I think some of you know that, I've got this thing about these flag poles. And have the rest be been involved in one in what? Yeah. Michelle did a bit of research and I found that they can be quite troublesome.
Very true.
But, you know, they're not from a practical, yeah, from a practicality point of view, yes, they look lovely, but there's lots of issues with them. So, I think that what Michelle was going to say was possibly looking at other things. This conversation started before the Queen died. Now, obviously, we have a coronation, and we've agreed to put to full council at our next meeting about coronation celebration, which of course would include decorating the town and looking at that. And one option me and Michelle have discussed, which she's going to investigate with that once I've counted, is the possibility of erecting flags on the telegraph poles, or what you call the lampposts. The banners, yeah, vertical banners, because with investing in, I know that we invested in some bunting, but it was plastic, it didn't look that good. So if we're going to invest money in anything, we want stuff that's reusable. And so the next job for me is to go and count lampposts and work out, you know, how much, but all of this would come under the banner of celebrations for the people want to call it Jubilee coronation, which we're going to bring to full council at the next meeting. So
Lovely. Do you know what? The more I thought about the naming Jubilee, but I know that we want to remember but coronation wood or something like that, that's that good because it's about a new start. You know, and what we're doing here is a new wood. And it'd be interesting, you know, if we planted it the same year, the coronation of the king, it gives you a reference point.
I mean, you could, I know we've got stuff to get through here.
Sorry.
Throwing this around, but you
Just
could,
playing on the mind.
yeah, but you could go coronation with, but have an area in it to commemorate Queen Elizabeth.
You can have a Jubilee tree.
You could have
A
Jubilee.
big oak tree.
You could have
Yeah,
Jubilee.
exactly.
You could have a Queen
Jubilee
Elizabeth
Or the
seating
Queen
area.
Elizabeth
You could have,
oak or
yeah,
something like
something like that, yes, yeah.
You know,
Happy to do that.
so it could turn into the, you know, Royal Woodland.
Can I just say this conversation about counting lampposts, when you drive, I'll count.
No,
You're not
I
I
think
think
it's
straight there.
Oh, Andy, that's far too simple. You know, that's you with your tech mind on and me thinking I've got to drive along.
Right, come on, I'm conscious of the time, let's go on. Book the Hearth Behind Biddle. While we were here at the book sale, I was approached by a lady who was complaining about the footpath behind Biddle that goes up through to Wayne Court, is it?
From opposite the chimney.
Yeah. About it being overgrown, unkempt. I wasn't sure who owns it. Is it us that owns it? We don't know, do we?
It's been brought up before, actually, I believe.
Yeah, I think, Tony, can you remember, has that been brought up that alleyway? The back of, you know, from Lidl's through to,
Sainsbury's.
yeah, through
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, but it's further on, it's towards, because she was complaining
Yeah.
about.
I
going to a
don't
bungalow.
think it's our jurisdiction.
I wouldn't have thought so.
I don't think it is.
So who owns that then? Is that-
We can
I don't
make
know,
some
because
inquiries.
the piece of land, the little green bit that's now fenced in to Brooklyn House, is that Brooklyn House there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That used to be just a piece of open green space. When I was younger, that used to just be a bit like just a little green parcel of land, but you could just, I don't know, go sit and get drunk on, I don't know. And then all of a sudden it was fenced off, and I think it was just part of, so I don't know if they bought it or if it was always there, so I don't know what it was, but that's obviously now been taken into, I think it's Brooklyn House. And the alleyway, I would assume it's just like,
I'd have thought that would have gone with the housing
yeah.
development.
Yeah. Usually when a housing development is built, if there are any interconnecting footpaths, they're adopted by the highway authority, or they're maintained by a management company, and if it's Wayland Court and it's a flagship, they may own.
It's been taken over.
Yeah, but then whoever runs the housing association.
But
they're probably
I think my concern was, is it ours? Is it our responsibility?
Very
Right.
much.
Could I suggest that we, first of all, we find out who it is, but also perhaps we alert, you know, because I think she mentioned social behaviour down there, didn't she? Sort of questionable things being left down there, that we just mentioned to the neighbourhood police to keep an eye on it.
Sorry, Cassidy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just off the back of what Councillor Lane said, I do think it would be appropriate to find out whose it is and ask them to, like, write to the whoever the owner is and ask them to maintain it. I think that's a proper thing to do if we can find out who it is. I mean, you just look on the land register, it shouldn't be hard to tell you, or it should tell you. But they, I have customers regularly come in the pub that will say that as well, because I think part of it is actually brambles. So it's not just that if the hedge is open, I think it's quite sharp and quite prickly. And again, litter picking, quite often there's a lot of broken glass down there. So although there's not a nice green area to sit and drink anymore, I think, you know, that probably, it still does occur because there's regularly broken bottles down there.
It isn't that hard to find out who owns it,
Yeah.
so I can assist if you need help. And then we can contact them. I think that's the best way, you know,
Yeah.
polite notice in the first instance, are you aware?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
these things
the
happen.
lady didn't give her name, but to say she was here for the book sale.
No,
And I said we would bring it up and see if we can find out.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Correspondence? I haven't had any correspondence. Have you got any?
I haven't.
No, that's easy. Any items for inclusion on the next agenda? Yes, Councillor Zena.
Way back when, we had an item to do with the gravestones that were in the closed cemetery. And at the time, Michelle made a recommendation that was actually, I think, quite well received by members. And we were going to bring it back. And I think it was in October to look at it, but obviously that was a long time ago. It's been forgotten. So that was something that we were going to bring forward, but I can't even remember now what it was that Michelle, but it would have been minuted at the time.
Yeah.
But this was quite some time ago, and
Useful stone.
Whilst
Yeah.
I
It was either making the floor hat or putting them around the edge.
think she's around the edge.
but then I don't know if, no, I think Michelle looked at that and because I think that was what the committee thought was the best idea.
Yeah, I think.
And we were, that was, do you know what I mean? But I think when we looked at it, for certain reasons, it was a bit unfeasible. I don't know if it was the level of, and I think Michelle said something about having like a, I don't want to say like a plaque, but like one singular stone that was engraved or something.
Yeah,
I'm sure
so-
Michelle said something and it was really well received by members. I don't know if it was just like was going to be like a memorial stone with the information from the stones on it so they could be disposed of or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but the minutes should reflect whatever the discussion was that was said. Or Michelle, because it was her idea, will probably remember.
Yeah, well, we can talk to Michelle
So,
once she's back.
I think you're right, Tony, because I seem to remember that there was a conversation with your late brother, actually, Joey, had looked into having them stood up, and that was turned out it wasn't feasible, and also the possibility of having them laid flat, and that wasn't for some reason that wasn't feasible.
Too expensive.
Yeah, and also it'd be a hazard,
Yeah, true, massive, because they're all different
all
levels.
different, yeah.
No, let's bring you back to this.
Right, so then last thing is date and time of next meeting, which is the 21st of November at 7 PM. Thank you, the meeting's closed.